So I needed to continue on, and I just ran out of time. So what I was at in this last question, just at the end of part 1, was that I canceled out my 12 and my 2. I also canceled out some of my x's. So I ended up with, at the top here, I had 2 x's on the top and only 1 on the bottom. So I can cancel out that x, and I'm left with just 1 x on top. So when I put this together, and this was a 6 before and this was a 1, I end up with 6x as my answer. These guys are all gone. Let me show you another example of that. So they've already done the factoring for me. I have 2 factors on the top, 2 factors on the bottom. All I need to do now is say, hey, I have an a plus 1 on the bottom and I have an a plus 1 on the top. Remember, I can only cancel out factors. And therefore, my answer, of course, will be a minus 6 is what's left on top, a plus 7, which is on the bottom, but I also need to look at my restrictions. A cannot equal, so these are the non-permissible values, the ones that would make the equation undefined. A cannot equal, and I go back here and I look at what's on the bottom, and A cannot equal negative 7, and a cannot equal negative 1. So again, I'm just taking it back to the beginning of that question. We always need to go back to the beginning of the question in order to figure out what our non-permissible values are. All right, so then the next one, we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to continue on. I will end up with an x plus 4 on top, but notice the bottom has not been factored for us. So that's what brings us back to our last unit. We need to continue to practice our factoring, so I put a y in front. And then, of course, my factors are going to be a 4 and a 5, and I know that because I need a negative 1 in the middle. So I have a plus 4 and a negative 5. Now I look at my factors and say, hey, that's lovely. X plus 4, I can cancel those out. What am I left with? Well, nothing on top, but really I am left with 1. So 1 up here, and on the bottom I'm left with x minus 5. Now in terms of my restrictions, I'm going to go and do that. Why? Well, I can't really tell it from up here, so I'm going to go to this next step to see what are my restrictions, what are my non-permissible, and why. So based on that, the second line, y cannot equal negative 4 and y cannot equal 5, because as soon as I put those 2 numbers in, the bottom becomes 0 because they're multiplied, and I end up with an indeterminate or an undefined expression. All right, last one, same idea. All you need to do is factor. And again, these are nice factors because I can use inspection. I just have an x in front of each. And I have a 4 and a 7 would work because 7 times 4 is 28. And when I add them together, I get 11, which is my middle term. On the bottom is difference of squares, x minus 7, x plus 7. So you can see how important that unit before on factoring was. Now I look for things that are common, but again, it has to be factors. I'm going to say this over and over again. That works out, and I'm left with an x plus 4 over an x minus 7. Now I'm going to go back to the front, or the top. Again, I could look at this, but it's easier to look at this expression as to what would make the values non-permissible, and that would be x cannot equal plus or minus 7, and I can just put a plus and a minus on top of each other, and there we have it. So the remainder of the class, you can go ahead and work on these questions 1 to 8. Lots of questions to do. Make sure you go through them, and you should be able to finish those up in this block. Thank you.